And we fought the Nana Akuffo Addo government because of its attempt to privatize the ECG.
Yeah.
The NDC was a major beneficiary of that fight. 2 weeks after taking power, then you look us in the face and say, we are also going to privatize ECG. What's the difference?
Anyway.
You know, in terms of policy and so on.
Right.
In terms of building the structure of policy and so on. What's the difference?
Okay.
I think that what we need to change is to change the fundamental structure of the national economy with a view to making sure that Ghanaian resources are owned by Ghanaian people. Ghanaians have a major part, in deciding what to do with Ghanaian resources.
Ebusuafo yebetoa video no so na de kwesi prat pa kire ne se sa IMF template and framework and kwan omo twato so ema Akuffo Addo fa so sa kwan kroya na utie atofo sen nkasae mu a mo so mo ba be fa so enti mo boaboa nkrofo anu ati omo adwenkyere kwan a mo be fa so a mo bebu man no yen hyeda nya ho mfaso bebre ho hyeda hia bebre fi se nkrofo no de omo adwenkyere ba se den kra na IMF kwan ya na still a mo nso so mo aban mo ba be fa so na yenko to de yenko tie video no na yenti de all kana si ye yeda mo ase.
Such fora can be very beneficial because they can lead to the achievement of a certain consensus, and that's important. Consensus building in a country like Ghana, which has numerous economic, social, and political problems, and so on, is key, and it's a strategy that we need to adopt. I worked very closely with former President John Akuffo, and one of the things that I admired about him was his ability to bring people on board from different places with different ideas and so on, to the extent that in his campaign, which led to his becoming president in 2001, he actually promised an all-inclusive government, and that was a key point of President Akuffo's, campaign. So I have no problem whatsoever with instituting a forum which is expected to lead to a certain consensus in dealing with a national problem. There's no problem with that. I'm happy on 2 counts. One, that this is a manifesto promise which is being realized, and the president even went to the extent of putting this within the time frame of the first 120 days of his administration. So it's a manifesto promise which is being kept.
Right.
I would that parties kept their manifesto promises rather than, threw the manifesto promises away and so on. So I think it's a good thing. I have some problems, however, and the problems I have mainly is that it does appear that the frame has already been set.
Right.
And this forum is not going to change the frame.
I see.
That's a problem for me.
Okay.
One, because you have the Minister of Finance, Akuffo, already announcing that he's actually expecting an IMF team to come and help put the budget together. And everybody knows the IMF's ideological position.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what they've done over the last how many years since independence and so on, and all of us suspect that they are not going to do anything new. So if you want to remain in the IMF frame, really, you sort of restrict us. You understand? So why do you want to hold such a national forum when we've already decided to pursue the neoliberal option? Now, there are some of us who do not believe in the neoliberal option and would have taken advantage of this forum to argue our case for abandoning the neoliberal path to national development. So I feel very, very bad about the fact that it appears that the frame is already set. You understand? Again, if you look at the election campaign, President John Dramani Mahama made it quite clear that they will renegotiate the terms of the deal with the IMF. So it's still very much within the IMF frame, So there's a forum, it's not a bad idea, but the frame is set.
It's set.
And if the frame is set, it's worrying for people like me who want to go outside the frame and look at other options for national development and so on.
Right.
Then you look at the appointment to the preparatory committee.
Right.
And that also confirms that the frame is already set. I mean, you take Dr. Ishmael Yamson, the frame is set. Same neoliberal order, it comes from the multinational, community, which also is not substantially different from the IMF and the World Bank and their prescriptions and so on. So the frame is set. You look at all the people who are coming from academia, and we've been listening to them over the last couple of years, and it's the same frame. So that's my problem with this. I recall that in the Professor Mills administration, a similar forum was held at Senchi that became known as the Senchi Consensus. And I remember very clearly that the New Patriotic Party decided to boycott that forum and actually threatened its members not to attend that forum and so on. I think that's not the right attitude. We should engage. Even for people like us who believe that the frame is set, if there's an opportunity, we should go there and argue that the frame is set and that we need to get out of this frame, which has not helped us at all over the last couple of years. As a matter of fact, I was in this country when in 1982-83, we decided to use the same frame to embark upon the economic recovery program. And I know the devastating consequences that program had on our country. I mean, within 12 months, more than 300,000 workers lost their jobs. If you look at the value of the city, cumulatively from that time up till now, the city has been devalued by 26,000%. If you look at the number of state enterprises which have collapsed and so on, even if you look at access to social services, you see a huge decline.
Right.
You understand? So I think that what we need to change is to change the fundamental structure of the national economy with a view to making sure that Ghanaian resources are owned by Ghanaian people. Ghanaians have a major part, in deciding what to do with Ghanaian resources. And then subsequently making sure that these resources are exploited for the benefit of the Ghanaian people. I think this is the only solution to the economic problems confronting Ghana.
Okay.
And when you have Sam Jonah tell us that Ghanaian interest in gold mining is less than 1% and actually laments it, you should realize that we have a huge problem. And you don't get out of that problem by using the same frame which led to the privatization, excessive privatization, doctrinaire privatization of the gold sector of the national economy. To the extent that we even sold our golden shares in Anglo Gold Ashanti, a decision which after now, I can't understand how that decision was made. The golden share was sold. And now you have less than 1% interest in gold mining. Ghanaian interest in gold mining is less than 1%. And then we are talking about privatization of ECG. And sometimes you wonder at these politicians.
What are they thinking?
What are they thinking? You are too kind. And we fought the Nana Akuffo Addo government because of its attempt to privatize the ECG.
Yeah.
The NDC was a major beneficiary of that fight. 2 weeks after taking power, then you look us in the face and say, we are also going to privatize ECG. What's the difference?
Anyway.
In terms of policy and so on.
Right.
In terms of building the structure of policy and so on. What's the difference?
What's the difference? Okay. Except that I've heard John Tinapos say this repeatedly, that in principle, the minority in the NDC has not been against privatizing ECG. The problem they had was a PDA model, which they had a problem with. But we can have that conversation.
But who says that what he's saying is the truth?
Okay.
We were opposed to the privatization of ECG on account of the history of privatization,
right,
and the causes of privatization and so on.
Right.
And are you saying that the NDC did not benefit from that criticism of privatization?
Okay.
One. That's the meaning.
Okay.
One. If you take ECG itself, as a state institution, so we have attempted to privatize ECG before.
Yeah, true.
We brought in the Electricity Company of France to take over the revenue mobilization aspects of ECG's work. Privatize that. What happened? It was one of the worst disasters in the management of the ECG. So there's a history of privatization in the ECG. There's a history of privatization in that sector. We brought in Aquavitan's Rand from South Africa, to take over the Ghana Water Company. It was a total disaster. There's a history. Since 1966, we have privatized close or more than 500 state enterprises. How many of them survived?